All right, sounds like you guys can hear me. Good morning. I'm Gabe Munch, and I work on digital and social media at Lexus, and I'm very excited to be here today to talk to you guys about how we captured the creative experience through the virtual lens. I'm fortunate to be joined this morning by Alastair, Executive Creative Director, and Felix Urquiza, Visual Effects Supervisor from Team One. Team One is a part of the Publicis Group, and they're a full-service agency. They've been Lexus's creative and digital agency for the last 30 years. Today, we're excited to show you how Lexus and Team One are experimenting with Unity to deliver amazing creative assets at scale. But before we dive into that, first let me give you a little background on Lexus and our brand. The Lexus story began in 1989 with the launch of our first sedan that shocked the industry. The idea of a Japanese luxury automobile that would compete with Mercedes, BMW, and Cadillac was unimaginable. After 6 years in development, the work of more than 1,400 engineers, hundreds of prototypes, over $1 billion invested, and the support and partnership of the finest dealers in the industry, Lexus charted into new territory. Lexus also reinvented the luxury car market, introducing new levels of service, satisfaction, and quality. This luxury experience was never before offered by any of the leading brands at the time. And we transformed the industry. And with it, Lexus moved from an unlikely outsider to an industry luxury leader, becoming as renowned for the experience of buying and owning the cars as it was for the cars themselves. Since Lexus was founded back in 1989, the world has changed a lot. But one constant has been the guiding philosophy of the Lexus brand, putting the customer first. That can take many forms, but the one I want to talk to you about today is omotenashi. This is a uniquely Japanese concept about treating each customer as you would a guest in your home and truly anticipating their needs. Traditional methods of creating and delivering car imagery and content result in static, pre-rendered visuals that aren't really interactive, and as a result, they don't really anticipate the customer's needs or react well to the ever-changing digital-led landscape. As modern media has changed with the emergence of highly visual platforms like Instagram, our guests' needs and expectations have changed with those developments. More and more of the research phase of our consumers is being done online, and less visits to the dealership before the point of purchase. This means that they expect really high quality immersive imagery of the vehicle in all of the different specs that we offer. We know that our customer wants to envision themselves driving in a vehicle, and they want to imagine what it feels like to be sitting behind the wheel. We also know our customers, like most affluent customers, embrace new technology, new platforms, and new media at a much faster pace. They are first adopters. So this puts even more of a strain and demand on our marketing as we try to anticipate their needs and understand where they want to consume our message. If you go back 5 to 10 years, we didn't have the demands of all these extra platforms and devices all at different sizes and aspect ratios. We didn't have 8 million followers on social, like we do today on social. We now have all of these amazing content marketing platforms to showcase our products, but our needs for assets and our budgets haven't really caught up. So that's why we look to Team One and Unity to create a virtual lens for assets at scale. So now I'd like to bring up Alastair and Felix Urquiza to show you what we've created. Gentlemen.
Just make sure my mic is hot. Thank you very much, Gabe. Thank you, Gabe. As you heard, Team One has been the Lexus agency for actually 33 years. So we helped establish Lexus in America. And obviously, as Lexus has grown around the world, we've also offered our expertise and our ability to kind of like create assets. So 33 years of being the Lexus agency. We think it's kind of a pretty special relationship. I want to thank Gabe and the rest of the organization for allowing us to actually experiment and to try and reinvent the future and do it in a kind of open way. And that's one of the reasons why we like being at places like Copenhagen Unite, because it allows us to kind of like experiment, see the future, try and demo some stuff. There are so many demands for beautiful imagery. So if we look at even like the Lexus website, and if we even look at social media, there are so many images we're putting up. So I think we did the math recently. It was like an average of 1 to 2 images, literally every day, going up. And that's not including like the massive amounts of imagery we're putting onto the website. So there's such a demand for us. And if you consider how we actually shoot cars in the real world, it's an incredible time-consuming endeavor, really, and it takes a lot of effort. And Felix, with his background, Felix used to spend, he spent like 10 years at the mill.
Yes.
I've spent 9 years at Team One. We've spent a lot of time shooting cars in the real world, both in still, but also in video. One of the things we've also done is that, like everyone in the industry, we've relied on CG to augment, but we've also relied on heavy post-production workflows to clean up that imagery. And that cleaning up that imagery actually is a really large labor-intensive period, which obviously has a large cost to us. And like everyone, and as Gabe has said, as these platforms have exploded, our budgets haven't exploded in the same sense. So we have this kind of this feeling of too many things, or we're trying to create more and more images at the same high quality, but with exactly the same budgets, or maybe not exactly the same. And keep it all beautiful. So you can feel, I can feel the pressure. I can just feel the pressure up here. So if we just look at the ES website, the ES is one of the original sedans from Lexus. I'm not sure, can I have a show of hands? Who's worked in the auto industry in here? So if you know, like, cars essentially are designed every 6 years, and that's called a major model refresh. And every 3 years, there's usually a little bit of a fascia change, enough to create an awful lot of problems for the people who create assets, or an opportunity to reframe the car. So every 6 years, there's a model major refresh. Every 3 years, there's a minor model refresh. And every time we do that, we literally have to make sure every single product is product correct. Gabe, you and I were actually talking about just downstairs as we were doing a little practice, how if someone actually sees an image on the website and then goes into a dealership and can't get that exact product correct, they will pull out the lawyer, because we work in America. They will call their lawyer, and then they say, I need to sue you guys because this image is not product correct. So we spend an incredible amount of effort and an incredible amount of time making sure the product is correct and making sure that every single image is updated. And if we look at even on the ES web page, and this is just for one trim alone, we probably have maybe 40 or 50 images, then add in the actual social media aspect, then add in like kind of like talking to the community. There's an incredible desire to create images at scale in the beautiful quality. Now, we're not saying that doing everything in real time is going to replace every single image, but we believe it can augment and help us be product correct, still maintain that beautiful imagery, but in a way that allows us to kind of really kind of allow the customer to come into our home and we treat and anticipate their needs. And we're just talking about the ES right now. When you start to think about the fleet of images, and we're launching new nameplates all the time, I think we're up to like 14 different nameplates with all the different trims. It starts to become this crushing weight, or a great opportunity to start to experiment with new technologies. Can I have a show of hands? Who's actually been on a kind of a photo shoot for a car before? Okay, a few people, maybe 3 or 4.
Any digital artist?
Nope, that's good. It's good to know. It's always good to know the room. Always good to know the room. By the way, we're trying to do edutainment, by the way. We're trying to be a little bit fun, a little bit educational, but also be entertaining. I might do some talks for a living. You may have known that, figured that out by now. So when we come to do photographing cars, everyone thinks it's like this incredible, like glamorous lifestyle, but it takes an incredible amount of work. We start planning out our shoots maybe 6 to 7 months in advance. Maybe even longer, actually, for like things like the code red. When we say code red, now I know that you guys aren't all super auto nerds. Code red is a terminology when we have a brand new nameplate, no one has seen it, where we actually have to lock down the locations. We have to make sure that no one is taking any spy photos. It's essentially super high security lockdown. Normally we do it in stages, and everyone on the stages has to be like security cleared, and it's kind of crazy. But sometimes we actually want to take that car and actually show it on location. And that's another kind of thing that's a pressure that's happening onto the agency and the automotive side. This desire to actually shoot super secret cars in location. Now, we're starting to see more and more CG cars come in, but we've started to ask ourselves, can we actually create the visual fidelity with real time and have that ability to show multiple trims without the render time? So I've just touched on the kind of a photography car. So in my mind, this was from a shoot back in Mexico City over a year ago. If you think about on set, time equals money. So when you think about a car is a very, very shiny object, and it reflects the environment, it reflects the crew, it reflects the camera, it reflects the light, which is what we want. These are all things that only the light is what we want. So we have to go in and actually post-production, we have to paint everything out. So it's a lot of work. We spend a lot of time when we're actually practically shooting cars by draping everything in black cloths or whiteboards or selective lights that are actually moving. We spend an incredible amount of time in every single setup or shot. It takes maybe like anywhere between like 10 minutes to an hour to 2 or 3 hours if we're bringing a, say like a 15, 20 meter softbox. We've got a crane. That crane lowers this massive, large light just over maybe like, I'm trying to convert everything from feet back to meters, by the way, you notice that? Yeah. Maybe it's kind of like, say like 20 feet or like 7 meters just on top of the car to create that beautiful pool of light that we actually desire. All of that has to be like meticulously changed if we want to change a lens. If we're trying to actually go from horizontal, which is our traditional, more cinematic and we use on the website, to a more vertical, we have to then flip the camera. All these things take time, and time is money. Time is money, and we spend so much time.
And that's just the shoot.
That's just the shoot.
We haven't even talked about post.
I know, exactly. We get to spend our time in beautiful locations. This is a parking garage in the middle of Mexico City, in the middle of night. Yeah, we didn't tell you, we usually do this on Sundays in the middle of the night, something that we give up our weekends again and again to spend time in cold places making these beautiful car images. The other weird thing is we also have to use weird people like this who technically is a creative, and I'm not always the one who actually has to go in and like change. We have product specialists on set changing all those screens, making sure everything is all product correct. Because yeah, again, as I said, people like to make sure things are product correct. So we often spend our times like moving around, and we haven't even talked about fingerprints. You move the car, you get fingerprints all over it. Some people like that. We don't, because we're a luxury brand. So all of this stuff is trying just to make this beautiful imagery. And yeah, again, we've hardly touched on post. So if you think about post, it's the going in and making sure we're picking up that subtle line. So if we look at we have the A pillar at the front, which is the bit by the windscreen. We have the B pillar, we have the C pillar. We have the rocker panels, which are these creases. So all of these design lines and all the lines on the hood, I think that's the bonnet, if I remember my English. All of these these beautiful lines, we want to accentuate them. So we're looking for light to kind of cast the light across the creases in the design, because the designers have spent years really finessing every single line. In actual fact, Toyota, they call it L-finesse, which is the design language. They want to make sure all of that design language is beautifully interpreted in the imagery. So for us, it's all about painting with liquid light, making sure the light's in the right space, making sure the environment is there. All of that post stuff, for the average image, maybe we're doing like 5 to 7 months planning in advance, and then we probably spend another 2 to 3 months literally in post. And that's for still. For video work, it can get compressed, unfortunately. But all of that time takes time.
Time.
And yet, come back to the way that our consumers, like Gabe was talking about, want to consume this imagery. They want to consume this imagery on Instagram. They want to see it. They want to believe it. We've started to use like so there's actually kind of a class of car photography, which is like the super beautiful. But then there's also this desire to kind of like work with influencers, work with like emerging photographers. We've asked ourselves, what happens when we actually try and do everything in post? So instead of actually doing this kind of like this pre-moment, the shoot, and then the afterwards, we said, what happens when we start to use platforms like Unity, and can we actually create a photography demo utilizing Unity? So that was kind of our question that we wanted to ask ourselves for this demo and for this talk. What happens when we actually lean into Unity, real-time engines, that beautiful high visualization we're seeing from the platforms right now? What happens when we really try and kind of like push the boundaries? And we're going to take you through a little demo. It's actually being on the showroom floor, but I need to press this button beneath you. This is the bit I was really looking forward to. I'm really super nerdy. And then Felix and I are going to run through a little bit of role play, not the kind of role play that you might want us to run through. But it's going to be a little role play. I get to play the douchebaggy advertising guy.
He was trying to convince me, though.
Yeah, I was, but that was maybe last night. Maybe that's tonight.
Yeah. There were a few drinks, I was like, actually. No.
All right, so Felix, what are we looking at?
So we're looking at the start of a menu. So what Alastair touched on was locations. That's like the one thing. Where's the car going to be shot? What's the background like?
So what am I seeing in my reflection? Because that's what I'm really seeing when it comes to car photography.
So the idea is we have a start menu. We have a few different locations. Since we're in a special place of Copenhagen, we'll go ahead and click on our Copenhagen location. Then we have a sub-menu for our Lexus fleet, the RX, LS, LC, ES, RCF, and so on. For this demo, we're going to touch base on the ES, the wonderful ES. And then it takes us into our lovely Copenhagen location.
I'm not even going to try and pronounce where this is. Is there any Danish people in the room? Do you know where this location is? It's Alienborg. Maybe I pronounced it really badly, but I think it's the Alienborg Square. It's where the Danish Queen lives. We actually went there. We did a little visual.
It's nice.
It's very nice, very nice. Lots of cobbles.
If you haven't visited, highly recommend it. So going back to the demo, how do you want to start this?
I think we just do a little kind of like look around. So what is this built in? This is built in the new HDRP.
Yep. So everything has been digitally scanned. So on location, we had the great team of Domable showed up, did a bunch of scans, took some photography on different time of days as well, and everything got processed digitally. And we ended up, so we took the scan, retextured everything, resurfaced everything, set the lighting, some really great work from Domable. And once everything was placed, we then took the car in. We had a great team at the Spotlight team that focused on the vehicle, getting it product right, putting in the colors, setting all the menu. And if we take a quick look at the menu, we started with the car. So to what Alastair was talking about is being able to change the different trims. Typically when you go on a shoot, there's one trim, single trim, one color. You'd be lucky if we get, 2 cars?
Yeah. We haven't even told you, like sometimes if I have to do an interior shoot, we usually have 2 cars, and we'll actually have to take the front seats out of the car so we can actually fit the camera in. So sometimes we're looking to use different, if you think about like the focal length of a, essentially, I'm going back into film stuff, but we're talking about photography as well. All these different zoom lenses. Ideally, sometimes we want to create that. If you remember the red product shot at the beginning of Gabe stuff, which is like an open door, we're using a wide angle to make it feel like you're inviting someone into the car. We want to use a wide angle there. Or maybe sometimes we actually want to have it a little bit flatter, and we might want to use kind of like a 15 millimeter. So sometimes some cars we can actually pop the trunk, take the seats out. Sometimes we're creating, in the old school, there used to be a buck, where we used to actually make parts of the car with actually stuff cut away, so you could actually get in. So that's all part of the kind of the interior. On this, hand it back to you, Felix, so you can tell me a little bit more about this before we start framing up shots and start talking about photography, because we're kind of going out of sync a little.
That's right. So in addition to, you do want a fully configurable car. You want to be able to switch between trims. In this case, I'll take you through the different rims so you can switch through, have the ability to switch through colors. So once you have a fully configurable car, you have a location. Those are your sort of main key points. Then you get into the doors opening. So sometimes when you're going inside the interior as well, Alastair was saying, we would have certain doors opening from either the passenger to driver. You have both. We close them down. We also have the wheel angles. Sometimes we have to adjust the wheel position during a shoot. Sometimes we add sandbags. In this case, we can add a little bit of weight or height to that.
And the reason why we do that is not to fool the public, because obviously if you think about suspension, some cars ride really high and they're actually designed for maybe 4 people. So sometimes we actually want to show what it looks like with the car actually having passengers in it. Sometimes the way we actually have them on stage, we kind of like lower them down a little bit. This is an old school trick of like adding some weight into the footwells to make the thing just sink a little bit more. Let's have a look at the time of day.
Yeah, let's have a look at the time of day. So this is where I think it's really exciting of this idea of the virtual production is the time of day. Typically when you go on a shoot, you set up, golden hour, it lasts, 5-10 minutes?
So you're waiting. Stressful time, I'm getting high just thinking about it.
So you're waiting all day long, sitting around, just waiting for that time, and the second it goes, it's like go, 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 you're shooting, you probably get a good
15, 20 minutes maybe, pushing
maybe
in
at
post-production.
that. So you're shooting, so your time of day here is fully controllable. If I want to do afternoon, I want to go to a more evening, it's all fully controllable. And I think that's what's really exciting is that you can select your time of day with no time. We can wake up and say, hey, let's start this project. Let's go in the afternoon.
Yep. This is what I'm really excited about, like virtual production, is the ability to control light and weather at my whim. Now, I'm a little bit of an egomaniac because I'm a creative director. You might have worked with creative directors in the past. I want it the way that I see it in my mind, and I also want to be able to experiment. I want to see multiple looks. When we're in traditional CG, or when we're actually in the practical world, that is something that's really hard because we spend so much time setting up shots. We very rarely get to see it in the way that we want to see it all the time. Yeah. The way I kind of like to think about this is, I'm not sure if you use kind of like SLRs or like mirrorless cameras. The invention of electronic viewfinders has allowed us to see the post-production LUT, or that film simulation, the framing of the depth of field. I like to think this is kind of like exactly like an electronic viewfinder. It's letting me see the image at a high visual resolution, so I can kind of get a really good idea of how, if we took this as kind of like an image, what would the post-production look like in the pre-production, in that kind of constant present production. Maybe it's not pre or post, maybe this is a present production. Maybe I'm just inventing new terms on stage, I don't know. I am inventing new terms right now.
So in feeding from the post-production side of things, so I worked in post-production for many, many years. I've done lots of different cars in my career, and the one thing that you always struggle with when you're a digital artist is the lighting part of it, switching the lights, moving the lights, it's a bit time consuming, and again, you're trying to satisfy the creative director, so you want to make sure that your image is always a top quality render, but that sort of takes a long time. I think what is really exciting here is that I have a full control of a camera option. We added lens just like a DSLR, so I can go from an 18 millimeter to a 50, and just like a camera would, if you guys, anybody here worked with a camera, second you change a lens, you have to adjust your shutter speed, your f-stop. So we're sort of mimicking that same analogy here. So if now I'm at a 50, I'm gonna change my f-stop. I'm gonna go to my ISO, change the EV compensation, and now I can really sort of control.
Do you want to focus that for me?
And I'm gonna change the focus.
Please do.
Yes. And I can really pick where I want my focus to be, which is really nice. Let me get a little closer because this is a 50 mil lens.
Actually, can you change the wheel so it kind of like just turns in a little bit? And this is what we do on set. It's like we're looking for the reflections and we're looking for the light. If you think about the traditional CG photography, we have to then render. We have to wait. We have to wait. Actually, I want to turn it a little bit more in.
Okay.
So this is all we've done in practice. We keep on saying, oh, that's a really nice, oh, I like the way that feature kind of comes out. And this is what we think is really interesting, is give not just for Felix's crew, but also for my creative department, the ability to noodle, the ability to actually play with images, to find something that's pleasing. Actually, I don't like the background. I don't like this reflection. Can we...
So let's rotate that.
And this is something you cannot do in real production. Literally moving a car means moving all those lights, means redoing a new setup again and again and again.
Dolly out.
There we go. I love the way it kind of like it just gently pops the magic in. Oh, actually, let's take it down a little bit.
So actually, let me go. Can we go to a little dark?
Yeah, let's go dark.
Some.
I want to put the lights on, so let's change the night.
Let's go to. This one's going to be a little. Let me change my lens. Let me go from a 50. Let me go a little. Let me go to your favorite lens, 24.
Yep. Can you slam the camera? So really, really down. I like seeing a little bit of light.
So let's do that.
Still not enjoying this reflection on the side. But we'll get there.
Let me adjust the...
One thing we've also thought about as we continue to kind of work with the guys from Unity and the Spotlight team, we keep on thinking, wouldn't it be great if we actually had an ability to kind of like save a location, save all the cameras, save a series of kind of like hotspots, go back to it. All of this is kind of really interesting. As you continue to experiment and play with these, you keep on saying, oh, it'd be really good to have this new use case. And that's what's been really fascinating, yet again, with Unity is the ability to kind of build this prototype in literally weeks, figure out what's working, being very, working with a high talented team to be able to say, all right, let's add this thing on the product roadmap. Very agile, it's been a little chaotic in times, but it's been the ability to change the way that we think about essentially building a tool set for creating beautiful imagery. It's only really possible in real time, and it's only really possible in platforms that have that extensibility, that have that great programmable backbone that allows us to really fine-tune the experience. I also love the fact that in theory, we're actually building off of the cinematography, those great cinematics we've seen in games. We're just applying it to a new industry. That's what's really interesting to me, is that ability to just think about how we can take the tools that's been used in games, and I used to be a big gamer until I had kids, but I love the fact that we can actually take all those great tools, the visual fidelity, and making it really, really tight. There's no way we can do it. Another thing we're actually a little bit of an insider, we always like to see the logos in the middle of the rims. It's called indexing the wheels. In a real shoot, we'll actually have a car prep person come in, jack up, we'll move the car, they'll come in, they'll jack up every wheel, they'll turn the wheel until the logo is perfect, or we'll fix it in post, which is adding, yet again, to all of this extra kind of like post work. In here, of course, the wheels can be programmed.
Yeah.
I'm feeling that's pretty good. I like that.
So, and what me and Alastair just did, and the sort of struggles that you have in post-production is you have these rounds, and these rounds are a lot of rounds, too many. But you need them, right? And it's the back and forth with the creatives, and you look at the lighting, you look at the CG, you look at the reflections. There you go. And it's always a back and forth because you as a digital artist, you're moving lights around, you're rotating the environment, you're adjusting this reflection, you're painting this out in the dome because you see this little ping. This just allows that constant where I can grab the creative and say, okay, let's move the world around.
Yeah, let's actually just go up a couple of kind of an EV stop. Actually, put it back. Just take the EV compensation because I forgot this screen is a little darker than the ones we're seeing. It's a little down a little bit more. Up a bit more. Perfect. That's a little bit closer to what we're seeing on here. So it's kind of fun. As you can see, yet again, imagine we do that. Imagine we kind of like, yet again, we're just doing stills right now. So we started to kind of wonder what happens when we start putting kind of like techno crane moves or like kind of like dolly moves or kind of like tracks. The ability to create kind of like beautiful product imagery at scale is a thing that we're really excited about. All of this, like a car is a very, very shiny object. The other advantage of real-time, obviously, and CG is I don't have to paint out the crew. I don't have to paint out the camera. I don't have to go into that heavy post-production workflow that kind of really slows us down. In theory, we can have an idea. Gabe and I can have a conversation. We can pick up the phone or jump on a Zoom chat. We can have that kind of thing. Like let's think about kind of like a July the 4th. In the past, we've actually spent time getting a red IS, a white IS, and a blue IS in a location which took a long time to actually create a shot just in a kind of like to celebrate with our American audience the July the 4th holiday. Red, white, and blue. Can you focus this, please, as well? I'm so demanding. But this, the ability to kind of like play and actually say, hey, I want to have this idea. I want to do like this red, white, blue thing. I'd love to maybe have it. Let's see what happens when we have this beautiful flag. That's the other kind of advantage of Unity is the asset store. Imagine having the ability to change any stage. We can bring the stage to our cars. We can change the lighting. We can then add all these extra stuff. We can have an idea, and in theory, we can have it posted within maybe an hour or so. That's why I'm super excited about like kind of the promise of real time. And it's all about that visual fidelity. And obviously, what's been fascinating for me on this entire project is how quick we went from an idea to actually a reality. And now we're playing with it on stage, literally within weeks. And that, for me, is actually the other power, is an extensible platform that allows us to create beautiful imagery. This is looking really nice. I love this this line by the door handles. I can't remember the exact name.
There you go. That's pretty nice right there.
So we're actually kind of like running out of a little bit of time. We can take some questions and answers.
Can.
Or questions, maybe we'll try and answer it. Is there anything we have actually not talked about? We've talked about, we also like sometimes we even added in a brake light in here. So if you want to press, you were pressing the brake light on this one?
Off.
You
there
are.
you go.
So we keep on as we've gone through all of this, we keep on saying, wouldn't it be good if, wouldn't it be good if, wouldn't it be good if, and yet again, that beautiful extensible platform allows us to really kind of like play, and we can only imagine like what we're going to do with this. Let's go back to the other monitor here, and let me just show you some. We also started to play, top left is an image where I just put in like kind of a ping of a kind of one of those ghosted people, like long exposure, just adding kind of a little bit of humanity. Because that was one of the kind of questions we had is like, but we want to have people in here. But then we started to say, can we just add people in post? That's the other thing. Do they actually have to be there? I don't know. Maybe that's something we can actually co-develop is a kind of a ghosting pack of people for automotive. I don't know.
That'll be fun.
And then the ability to be able to actually
that.
play with, there's just some really beautiful images coming out of this. And we've been playing with like the depth of field, that cinematic quality. It's really, really interesting. We should take some questions.
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions? I can't hardly see. Do you want to, I've been asked to say, if you want to have a question, you have to go to one of the microphones because they're recording this session, which is one of the reasons why I'm not swearing. Because my mom hates it when I do that. She fucking hates it. She fucking hates me. All right, you were there? I can hardly see you.
I'm over here.
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
Are you planning to make any of this available to the consumer on the webpage or to other tools, apps, maybe at a limited scale?
It's a really good question.
Very good question.
Do you want to take this one, Gabe?
Join us, Gabe.
Come up.
I don't know if I'm still mic'd. So yeah, this is, I think one of the really cool things about this is right now, like all of your major OEM sites have what you call like a configurator, and some even have some kind of like 3D visualizations, but nothing to this level of quality. So we're really hoping that this is going to kind of be like the forefront of bringing like this type of configurable experience at like this level of quality to the site. I think it's not quite there because you're still kind of dealing with the capacity of the person's own device's network speeds or whatever. But I think this is, like, we're going to get there really quick, and it's really exciting.
And as things like the cloud-based rendering kind of comes on, that's going to be an area that makes a lot of sense. And I think every OEM, every people who are actually thinking about cars is thinking about that as a product line. So to go from those kind of like pre-rendered shots into the ability to allow customers to truly configure the car they want, put in a location, maybe even scan a location behind, put their car in it. Self-actualization is a big thing in the automotive. If you can see the car in your world, we know much more likely to actually go through all the paperwork online and then go to a dealership to pick it up, which is very different.
We were talking about, like you see it a lot on like consumer product goods sites, Amazon, Wayfair, where you can like visualize a product in your living room. I think there's another opportunity here where you can allow people to have a more kind of like personal experience where they're putting the vehicle in their driveway or maybe in their living room if they want to, just to see if it fits.
One of the places, because we do the events for Lexus, we do a lot of car shows, the ability to actually set up kind of like a photo booth for the car enthusiast public, have it more of a local version before we actually figure out the kind of some of the data security that we have to get through with our Japanese wonderful people in Japan. How do we actually kind of make sure everyone's okay with the way that the technology is progressing? We think we can also activate on events. So once we have a lockdown local box, much like we have now, there's opportunities to do it at events, there's opportunities to do it at car shows. It's a really interesting time to be in automotive right now, and we can feel the world changing. Is there any more questions? Oh, that's good. I think we'll wrap a little early. We want to make sure there's time for questions, but there's only one. Perfect. All right, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you all.
Oh, we also want to say, let's go to the next page. We also want to say a big thank you to our partners at Unity, and specifically the Spotlight team. Gabe, Felix, you wanted to call out 2 individuals.
Very special thanks to Pierre and Rachel. They did an excellent job on this project, worked really hard, and really appreciate all their hard work.
And we also want to say thank you for Domable, who helped us a little bit on the scanning, and again, on the art team who actually helped make that stuff. So thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you maybe next year.